should be working on the Mazda. We are so close to having the Mazda in paint and done to where it doesn't need anything. Right now, it really doesn't need anything to drive, so it stops me from working on it. But this week, like the last couple weeks, we're working on a new project that we really don't need, and we don't need to be working on, but it involves a lot more fabrication than a little sheet metal work and paint. And I've had a fabrication itch here the last couple weeks, plus that whole A.d.d thing where I can't stay on track. So that's what we're doing. We're working on the Ranger again. The Ranger, if you've been here before, the last couple of videos explained it's going to be more of a traditional lowrider rather than a traditional mini truck. And what I mean by traditional-ish lowrider, which I know it's a mini truck and I understand there's different terminology that goes along with that, I would like for it to have spokes, a whole lot of batteries, 3 to 4 pumps in the bed. I want to do big monster 3 wheels. So we have a lot of work to do, and we're going to document everything. If you've never been here before, the Mazda, there's like 60 videos of that thing going over every bit of it. And it will be finished whenever my brain lets me get back to it, because we have a new project, because I can't stay on track. The Ranger, again, we're documenting it from beginning to end, and hopefully at the end I'd miss doing 3-wheel through big intersections. It's so much fun. It's like the best thing you can do in a car to me. And I figured since we've built this channel so far off mini trucks, we might as well try and do that with a mini truck. So if you haven't been here before, we've been working on this truck for the last couple weeks, and last week we gutted the engine bay, cleaned it up. This week we're continuing that. We're trying to make it to where we're going to chip away at all of the things that have to do with the truck that aren't necessarily suspension parts, right up until the point where we need to take it apart. I want to leave the truck running and driving as long as possible so I can still move it around and still get some work done. So we're going to concentrate on that. I have a box full of stainless steel exhaust. I have a box with a Chinese knockoff MagnaFlow in it. And the last 3 days, I have been working on getting the headers installed. And it has been one of the worst header installs that I've ever done. And I do not recommend, if you have a 2.9, maybe even a 4-liter, and it's 34 years old like this one is, and the exhaust studs aren't broken, just leave the manifolds on there, because it's terrible. If I would have known, well, I knew it going into this, because they all do it and I've been down this road before. I should have known better, is what I should say. I should have known better, and I should have just left it alone and figured out how to tie into the halfway rotted tailpipe that was on there, and just left it as good as it was, I guess. As you can see, there was heat applied and oils applied that were burned off with the heat. I ended up cutting the factory Y pipe because all of this is totally rotted. Like, that bolt is almost non-existent. I didn't want to deal with this at all. Again, looks like a bomb went off in my garage, and this is all of the tools that I've been using to extract these things and try to fix this problem. As you can see, here's a couple of the issues that we've been running into. You can see how long the bolts are supposed to be and how long they are now. Yeah, it's been a pretty exciting couple days. My original plan was to come in here, drill it out, retap it to a larger size, use a helicoil style or a thread cert or whatever you want to call these, because helicoil is a brand. Make it back to M8. And then I got comparing and thinking, why would I go through all of that trouble just to put in there something that could potentially fail? Which, I don't know if you've seen it before, but the Caprice, it's had the same treatment. That car sat in the woods for 15 years. Drove it out of the woods. As soon as I go to tinker with the engine, I find broken studs inside of the head. So I drilled them, tapped them, helicoiled them, and fixed them with new hardware. I felt like with this, after seeing how large of a drill bit the M8 needed in order to install the helicoil or thread cert or whatever, I understand there's a difference. It's just a generic term that I use. Instead of doing all that, I went to the next size up and just converted them to 3/8 bolts, because the 3/8 bolts fit inside of the headers that I have, and I figured bigger is probably better in this scenario. It's kind of hard to see on camera, but I went through, re-tapped all of these, fixed the threads, cleaned everything up to where I have 3 8mm bolts again, and then I have 3 3/8 bolts now, and they are nice and smooth and somewhat square, and hopefully nothing becomes an issue. I'm really crossing my fingers and constantly knocking on all the wood around me, and I really hope this works. I think I need to pick up some spark plugs probably, and hopefully I didn't harm anything when I was using the torch, because I was putting a lot of heat on this thing. Fingers crossed I didn't ruin anything. We'll just say that. So on the other side, this is where the more of a problem is going to come into play. Kind of hard to pick up on camera, but that little thing right there, that's a broken off stud with a little bit protruding. I have tried to snap vice grips on this and heat it and pull it out, and it does not move at all. And then up here, it's broken off almost flush. So we need to, hopefully the drill fits in there. I don't think it will, but again, we're crossing our fingers and our toes. We got 2 more left. I also managed to clean all the threads of these and put 8mm bolts back into place through here. So just looking at it, I think we're gonna be lucky as far as space goes for the drill. I just tried to snap a pair of vice grips on there, and that thing is not budging at all. I'm gonna do the same thing that I've been doing. I'm gonna cut it off flush, grind it down. I have some things that are, that was my drill. I have some things that are intended to extract these, but I don't want to do the welding deal with this. So I understand people have a fascination with welding the nut on there, and I've done it many times. I've been a mechanic for close to 20 years now. It's been doing it for a long time. If I can't snap a pair of vice grips on there and heat the head with a torch to get the studs to move, welding a nut to the end of it is not going to help. So just throwing it out there. I've tried all of the things that you can try to get these out. This is the only thing that you can do. I was able to remove 2 of the studs with a torch after they snapped off the other night. The remaining ones will not move. So just welding random stuff to it's not going to help. I have these little Mac bits. These are supposed to be used for extracting, and what I've been doing is just using the first 2 steps and not the third. One flattens the end of the stud, and the other one puts a little dome, so it's essentially like center punching it for your new drill bit. After I get done with these, I just take the drill bit that I dropped on the ground and drill it out to the size that I need in order to put my new tap in there. I snapped the vice grips on there just one more time, just so we can see. And all it's doing is slipping on the stud. I'm afraid to put any more heat on it because I was going a little wild the other night. Well, I added a little bit of heat, and Luckily the stud broke off. That way I don't have to cut it off. I can just grind it flush now. Go ahead and shove a paper towel in here before we get to drilling and grinding. Sorry for the camera angle. There's not really enough room for my hands, let alone a camera in there. Trying to wedge my camera in here. You see, all I'm doing is making them flush-ish, and then I'm gonna follow that up with, the little Mac stud extractor bit things. So, like I said the last couple times, this thing is obnoxious. It is now worse because it is open header rather than just an exhaust with no muffler. My neighbors are going to hate me after this is done. I just had to add that in there. Ooh, smell a little smoky. I'm pretty sure this motor has way more miles on it than the odometer says. But it's cool. Mini trucking, right? I'll show y'all how far I got last night before I just gave up. So this is where we are at. There are, in fact, headers on the truck. They do have bolts in them. The bolts aren't necessarily straight, and they're kind of questionable. But as of right now, the the headers are bolted to the truck. The passenger side took longer to do 2 bolts than the entire driver's side did to do however many were broken over there. It was really bad. It's not a good night. And I have what looks like little cat scratches all over my hands because it's a little tight in here. To go on with the tightness, I know we've been rambling for a while. I apologize in advance. There's a lot of rambling in this video. Normal intake comes over here to this big bulky box, really big bulky intake. I would like to do away with that while we're in here because I don't think that that is necessary and it's going to be in the way. The cylinder needs to come up through the spring pocket and bounce around in this area. They move, they're not rigid. So that box will break. It's inevitable. So I'm kind of thinking, since I have an entire box of stainless steel tubing over there that we're not going to use all of it, maybe we'll do a little stainless steel hot air intake and get a little bit more fabrication in for the weekend. No promises. I don't know if I have any filters laying around, but maybe we'll try that. Here is the header. Look how terrible that valve cover is. That's another thing we need to do. Pull those off, paint them, and new gaskets because they leak almost immediately. That header is much more forgiving, even though there was more things in the way over here. I was still able to get the job done better, I guess. We'll just say I went with the fry burger mindset on the other side and did a whole lot of persuading with a very large hammer yesterday. I had my buddy Jared send me a picture of a 4-liter, because these are 4-liter headers, not 2.9 headers, even though they're similar engines. I had him send me a picture of the oil filter mounting housing thing off of his truck, or one of his engines. And it's actually shaped differently, which would have helped me a lot when it came to installing the header, because everything that I did massaging wise was because of that filter housing thing. Also, the headers were welded together incorrectly, so regardless, we need to get to work. Again, I've been just running my mouth. I have a Y pipe that Jared gave me with the headers. The only problem is it has this thing on the end of it that you mount a cat to, and it is really big and ugly, and the only stainless steel I have left over from the Mazda is too small. No matter which way I arrange this gasket, I don't think I'm going to have enough meat here to make this seal against the bottom of that. So I'm kind of envisioning just chopping that off and making a piece of tubing fit the end of this. Not sure how it's going to work, because for one, it has a ton of weld inside of it from China. These have some kind of clear coat on them that I can see. That's going to make it challenging. I don't know if a piece of 2.5-inch tubing is going to stretch to whatever dimension that is. But we're going to try it. We're going to see what happens. I'm going to get the truck jacked up because I don't think my belly fits under there. A little undershot of the headers here. That one is immediately black, so this motor is probably hurting pretty bad, but it's cool. We'll just keep dumping money into it. So this is the single side of the Y pipe. As you can see, it has that crazy weird flange on there. So we need to come up with something that is not that. I think we need to start off by hacking that off and figuring out how to build off of that. No turning back. So my idea here, got my old anvil. I'm going to stretch the end of this so I have this. I don't know where this came from or what this is intended for, but it fits in here pretty good to where I don't have to actually beat the end of the pipe. I'm going to put this on here. I'm going to smack it with a hammer really hard and try to get the end of this to flare out a little bit. So my idea behind this, I think I needed a little bit more than what was there, and if not, I can always trim it. I cut that end off. I'm going to try to oval this out, and I'm hoping, which I might have not even needed to flare that. It might even be big enough, turned into an oval. Maybe not. I'm going to try and oval it, see if we can make the same shape and make these two fit together. As you can see, there's I'm going to hold my hand. There's a pretty big gap between the sides. Let's see what happens. As you can see, I haven't cleaned my bench yet. We're going to attempt to weld these two things together, or at least tack them together, and see where we get. Well, it's not my best work, but it's attached. It looks kind of weird. I don't know exactly how that thing's going to sit in there, but most likely we're going to have to cut it off somewhere around here, and then I'd like to put maybe a V-band on the end of this. So far, not bad. It's a little close there. I tried to adjust it to where this thing actually points out of the back, somewhat square, which it looks pretty good. It is facing up a little bit, so I'm going to cut it off probably around here. I'd like to put a V-band on this end, have a straight pipe coming all the way up here. I'd like to mount the muffler probably after the mounts. I think I'm going to reuse this. I bought other mounts, but I think this makes more sense to try to utilize the factory stuff. So I'm going to put the muffler here. I have two V-bands. I don't think it's necessary to use them. I thought about V-banding the tailpipe on. That way I could take the tailpipe off and make it whatever I want later on, just in case. I kind of want to do a turn down on this because I'm not sure where the suspension's going to sit, and I don't really care if this thing drones. Kind of thinking here, just small turn down or something that swoops out or something, because I'm pretty sure the 4-link bars are going to be in this range. So yeah, we're going to do that. Pull that back off, weld a V-band on there, weld a V-band onto a piece of tubing, and then start making some stuff. I think that this is intended to be clamped. I'm going to weld this together because it doesn't need to be clamped anymore. There's no reason for that, especially because there's no room for a clamp in here. So I'm going to reach the TIG welder under here and just put a couple little tacks on there or something just to hold it in place. Alright, so what you just seen me do there is I put a small flat spot in that tube. And you don't really notice it unless you're looking above the cross member that we made last week. Tack welded the V-band onto the Y pipe. Well, actually I tack welded it to the tailpipe. It's fully welded on the Y pipe. The Y pipe doesn't need to come back off until we're, well, hopefully it doesn't need to come back off. I need to transfer over the O2 sensor. Hopefully it comes out of the exhaust. I'm not too hopeful on that. So now I have these two hangers. I found one of the pieces of stainless steel that I had from the Mazda build. I'm going to attempt to make a hanger to go in here, maybe tonight. But I'm going to pull this back off, fully weld this in place. I have the muffler. I held it up, which I don't really know how I'm going to do that with the camera in my hand, but I held it up. It needs to go that way just a tiny bit. So either I need to extend this tube or I need to try to weld that other V-band on here to gain me a little bit of length, because it actually makes contact with that cross member right there. So if the V-band fits on here, I'll probably just weld the V-band on here, and for whatever reason the muffler will be removable, and I already have the V-band. So what I'm going to do is basically cheat a little bit. I'm going to utilize this flare. That way I'm not butt welding stuff, and it'll actually make it a little bit stronger because it'll be a slip. I'm not going to utilize the entire thing. I think I'm just going to go with just a little section, and then I'm going to cut this here. This will give me my extension for my muffler, and then I can use this as my tailpipe once I get this cut. Well, we finished up last night with me welding the tip onto the muffler. And the thing that I did, that I checked and checked and checked, and I still managed to do, was weld the tip on upside down. I laid underneath the truck, and the tip was pointing at the bed. It was like 2:30 in the morning. So I gave up after I cut the tip off, welded it back on, bolted the exhaust of the truck, and then pulled the truck outside. I didn't feel like I could get a a good sound clip, so we're gonna get a sound clip now. Last night it sounded pretty good. Like, I don't think I've ever heard a V6 Ranger that I would say it sounded anything close to good. I'm really surprised. The $50 Amazon muffler is so far the good choice. It is loud. It is still loud, but it's not a bad sound. Hopefully the video does it justice. I think it sounds pretty good for a V6. And usually those don't sound very good. At least in the crappy 80s world. But I got a little bit of time. I'm going to try and get some yard work done today, so I'm not going to record until 9 o'clock at night like I usually do. But I got some time. I'm going to check through my shed, see if I have any black couplers for like cold air intakes. See if we can make up something real quick for an intake for this. I don't think I have any filters, so I have to order one of those though. So I went through my shed. I did not have any couplers that are black, which I'll just order one since I know that a 2.5-inch coupler fits. This is what I found. I found a blue one, which is actually from back when I had my supercharged Volkswagen back in the day. So thinking real simple here. 90 looks kind of clean and decent. I have a bunch of these stainless steel tabs that I made for the Mazda when I was doing the exhaust, and I only used like half of them. Thinking if I flatten the edge of this to get it closer, open that up a little bit to a 2.5-inch exhaust, I can mount that to this same bracket that we have the battery box mounted to. That way it doesn't bounce around. It'll have flex between the coupler and the engine, so nothing will break. I have another 90-degree elbow down here. I just need to trim that off. I cut the plastic inner fender, which these are most likely going to come out anyway, but I cut the plastic inner fender out to get this in here, which I found this in my junk. Just a little K&N filter that happens to fit this tubing also. So I'm going to attempt to throw all this stuff together. And we're already running out of daylight because I decided to go grocery shopping in between making this video. So here we are. Not too bad. Kind of hard to see on camera, but you see it kind of dodges that way. I like it. It's didn't really cost me much considering I already bought the exhaust just to do this truck, and I used like a third of what was in the box. I still have a full stick, both of the U's, and a 45 left. So, yeah, like a third, even with using stuff for the intake. Not too bad. I re-listened to that clip. I have to go back outside and record the clip again, so it sounded just like loud noises because the microphone didn't want to process what was going on. And I will show y'all what it looks like underneath the truck in the daylight, since I have a tiny bit of daylight left. And that's probably going to wrap it up for the day. I wonder how long it takes for the check engine light to come on if the O2 sensor isn't hooked up. It's still attached to the cat on the ground. And I know the light works because I've seen it come on before. Maybe it has to get to operating temperature or something. Kind of weird. This is kind of when they were still trying to figure out fuel injection and hadn't quite perfected it yet, so who knows. Still has a misfire, still has what smells like terrible gas. I filled it completely up, which my rule of thumb is usually 2 gallons of bad gas with 5 gallons of good gas is 7 gallons of bad gas. So I tried to dilute it just to where it wasn't sucking just that nasty stuff down, but when you take the gas cap off, it smells terrible. So I'm gonna get some tune-up stuff for it, plugs, wires, and all that stuff. I have to get new plug wires because the wires that were on it don't fit very well with the new headers on there. So got some stuff to do. Well, I'm kind of out of time. It's getting dark. I need to get out of here and actually do some yard work instead of playing with toys. And next week we'll make an exhaust hanger for the muffler because it's just kind of doing its own thing in there. I'm going to order a black boot for the intake and kind of button up that stuff. And after that, and like putting brakes and stuff on it, I can actually just drive it around. Like I can drive it to work if I felt like it. So which is kind of nice because I'd like to enjoy it for at least a little bit before I completely cut it up. I'm still waiting on some parts, waiting on some 4-link ends and bushings and stuff. I bought some 2x2 tubing and quarter wall to build the 3-link. So I'm getting parts together, but I think next weekend, even if we don't take the bed off the Mazda, we need to get the Mazda in here and at least make the filler piece that goes underneath the bed floor and the back half. I got some ideas for that. We gotta do some sheet metal work, pretty much is what I'm saying. We need to give some love to the Mazda. The whole A.d.d straying away and working on new projects that I didn't need. It's been getting to me, but I feel kind of satisfied on work that's done to the new Ranger. And now the new Ranger can drive to work, so it's a plus. Don't forget to do all the normal YouTube-y things with the likes and the comments and subscribing and all that. I would appreciate it if y'all subscribe. We are very, very close to 3,500 now. I'm thinking maybe when we hit 4K, I'll do another t-shirt giveaway. and I'll do more t-shirts this time. So let me know what y'all think about that. Tell your friends and mom and dad and whatever to subscribe. Let's try and get some more people in this. And I will see y'all next weekend. Thank you again.